Welcome to Tech with Kaushik. This is part 13 of our complete practice question series for the CLF-C02 AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner exam. Choose your answer before the timer ends, then review the correct answer, explanation, and exam tip. Let us begin part 13. Question number 656. What AWS services can host PostgreSQL databases? Choose 2. Option A, Amazon S3. Option B, Amazon Aurora. Option C, Amazon EC2. Option D, Amazon OpenSearch Service. E, Amazon Elastic File System, Amazon EFS. The correct answer is B, Amazon Aurora. C, Amazon EC2. Here is why. Aurora provides a PostgreSQL-compatible managed engine, while EC2 can host a self-managed PostgreSQL installation. Why are the other options not correct? Amazon S3 provides object storage. D, OpenSearch is a search and analytics service. E, Amazon EFS provides managed shared file storage. Exam tip. Aurora supports PostgreSQL compatibility. EC2 can host self-managed databases. Question number 657. What AWS service gives users the ability to deploy highly repeatable infrastructure configurations? Option A, AWS Cloud Formation. Option B, AWS Code Deploy. Option C, AWS Code Build. Option D, AWS Systems Manager. The correct answer is A, AWS Cloud Formation. Here is why. CloudFormation uses infrastructure as code templates to provision consistent, repeatable AWS resource configurations. Why are the other options not correct? B, Code Deploy automates application software deployments. C, Code Build compiles source code and runs tests. D, Systems Manager manages and operates supported resources. Exam tip. CloudFormation creates repeatable infrastructure from templates. Question number 658. An organization is planning to migrate to the AWS cloud. The company is conducting organizational transformation and needs to become more responsive to customer inquiries and feedback. What tasks should the company perform to satisfy these requirements? According to the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework, AWS CAF. Option A, realign teams to focus on products and value streams. Option B, create new value propositions with new products and services. Option C, use a new data and analytics platform to create actionable insights. Option D, migrate and modernize legacy infrastructure. The correct answer is A, realign teams to focus on products and value streams. Here is why. Product and value stream aligned teams improve customer focus, ownership, and responsiveness to feedback during organizational transformation. Why are the other options not correct? B, creating value propositions focuses on business innovation. C, a data platform produces insights but does not directly realign teams. D, infrastructure modernization does not by itself improve team responsiveness. Exam tip. Product-aligned teams improve ownership and customer responsiveness. Question number 659. An organization needs to use AWS technology to deploy a static website. What solution can satisfy this requirement with the least amount of operational overhead? Option A, deploy the website on Amazon EC2. Option B, host the website on AWS Elastic Beanstalk. Option C, deploy the website with Amazon Lightsail. Option D, host the website on Amazon S3. The correct answer is D, host the website on Amazon S3. Here is why. Amazon S3 can host static website files without requiring the company to provision, patch, or operate servers. Why are the other options not correct? Amazon EC2 requires virtual server administration. B, Elastic Beanstalk provisions and manages application infrastructure. C, Lightsail provides simplified servers but still uses compute resources. Exam tip. Use Amazon S3 for low-overhead static website hosting. Question number 660. What AWS service supports user sign-up functionality and authentication to mobile and web applications? Option A, Amazon Cognito. Option B, AWS Config. Option C, Amazon Guard Duty. Option D, AWS Systems Manager. The correct answer is A, Amazon Cognito. Here is why. Amazon Cognito provides user sign-up, sign-in, authentication, and authorization features for web and mobile applications. Why are the other options not correct? B, AWS Config records configurations and evaluates compliance. C, Guard Duty detects malicious activity and unauthorized behavior. D, Systems Manager manages and operates supported resources. Exam tip. Cognito provides customer identity for web and mobile applications. Question number 661. A user has been granted permission to change their own IAM user password. What AWS services can the user use to change the password? Choose 2. Option A, AWS Command Line Interface, AWS CLI. Option B, AWS Key Management Sun/ICE, AWS KMS. Option C, AWS Management Console. Option D, AWS Resource Access Manager, AWS RAM. E, AWS Secrets Manager. The correct answer is A, AWS Command Line Interface, AWS CLI. C, AWS Management Console. Here is why. With the required IAM permission, a user can change their own password through the AWS Management Console or by using the IAM change password operation with the AWS CLI. Why are the other options not correct? B, AWS KMS manages encryption keys. D, AWS RAM shares supported resources across AWS accounts. E, Secrets Manager stores and rotates application secrets. Exam tip. IAM users can change their own password through the console or AWS CLI. Question number 662. An organization needs to store infrequently used data for data archives and long-term backups. What AWS service or storage class can satisfy these requirements most cost-effectively? Option A, Amazon FSx for Lustre. Option B, Amazon Elastic Block Store, Amazon EBS. Option C, Amazon Elastic File System, Amazon EFS. Option D, Amazon S3 Glacier Flexible Retrieval. The correct answer is D, Amazon S3 Glacier Flexible Retrieval. Here is why. S3 Glacier Flexible Retrieval provides low-cost archival storage for data that is rarely accessed and can tolerate retrieval times ranging from minutes to hours. Why are the other options not correct? FSx for Lustre provides high-performance file storage. B, Amazon EBS provides block storage for compute workloads. C, Amazon EFS provides managed shared file storage. Exam tip. Glacier Flexible Retrieval suits archives that do not require immediate access. Question number 663. An organization needs to use a serverless compute service for an application. What AWS service can satisfy this requirement? Option A, AWS Lambda. Option B, AWS Cloud Formation. Option C, AWS Elastic Beanstalk. Option D, Elastic Load Balancing. The correct answer is A, AWS Lambda. Here is why. AWS Lambda runs event-driven application code without requiring customers to provision, patch, or manage servers. Why are the other options not correct? B, Cloud Formation provisions infrastructure from templates. C, Elastic Beanstalk deploys applications and manages underlying resources. D, Elastic Load Balancing distributes traffic across targets. Exam tip. Lambda runs code without server management. Question number 664. What AWS service allows for file sharing between multiple Amazon EC2 instances? Option A, AWS Direct Connect. Option B, AWS Snowball Edge. Option C, AWS Backup. Option D, Amazon Elastic File System, Amazon EFS. The correct answer is D, Amazon Elastic File System, Amazon EFS. Here is why. Amazon EFS provides managed shared file storage that multiple EC2 instances can mount and access concurrently. Why are the other options not correct? Direct Connect provides dedicated network connectivity to AWS. B. Snowball Edge supports data transfer and edge computing. C. AWS Backup centrally manages backups. Exam tip. EFS provides shared file storage for multiple compute instances. Question number 665. An organization is migrating its public website to AWS. The company needs to host the domain name for the website on AWS. What AWS service should the company use to satisfy this requirement? Option A, AWS Lambda. Option B, Amazon Route 53. Option C, Amazon CloudFront. Option D, AWS Direct Connect. The correct answer is B, Amazon Route 53. Here is why. Route 53 provides domain registration, DNS hosting, traffic routing, and health checking for public websites and applications. Why are the other options not correct? Lambda runs event-driven code. C. CloudFront caches and delivers content through edge locations. D. Direct Connect provides dedicated network connectivity. Exam tip. Route 53 provides domain registration and DNS services. Question number 666. An organization needs to monitor and block malicious HTTP and HTTPS requests that its Amazon CloudFront distributions receive. What AWS service should the company use to satisfy these requirements? Option A, Amazon Guard Duty. Option B, Amazon Inspector. Option C, AWS WAF. Option D, Amazon Detective. The correct answer is C, AWS WAF. Here is why. AWS WAF inspects HTTP and HTTPS requests received by CloudFront and can block requests that match malicious patterns or configured rules. Why are the other options not correct? Guard Duty detects threats from AWS data sources. B. Inspector identifies software vulnerabilities and unintended exposure. D. Detective helps investigate security findings. Exam tip. WAF filters web requests. Shield protects against DDoS attacks. Question number 667. What AWS service is designed for users running workloads that include a NoSQL database? Option A, Amazon RDS. Option B, Amazon S3. Option C, Amazon Redshift. Option D, Amazon DynamoDB. The correct answer is D, Amazon DynamoDB. Here is why. DynamoDB is a fully managed, serverless NoSQL key value and document database. Why are the other options not correct? Amazon RDS provides managed relational databases. B. Amazon S3 provides object storage. C. Amazon Redshift is a managed data warehouse. Exam tip. DynamoDB is NoSQL. RDS provides relational databases. Question number 668. Under the AWS Shared Responsibility Model, which of the following are AWS responsibilities? Choose two. Option A, network infrastructure and virtualization of infrastructure. Option B, security of application data. Option C, guest operating systems. Option D, physical security of hardware. E, credentials and policies. The correct answer is A, network infrastructure and virtualization of infrastructure. D, physical security of hardware. Here is why. AWS secures the physical facilities, hardware, networking, and virtualization infrastructure that operates AWS services. Why are the other options not correct? B, Customers protect their application data. C. Customers maintain guest operating systems on Amazon EC2. E. Customers manage their identities, credentials, and access policies. Exam tip. AWS secures cloud infrastructure. Customers secure their workloads and data. Question number 669. An organization needs to use Amazon S3 to store audio files that are each 5 megabytes in size. The company will rarely access the files, but the company must be able to retrieve the files immediately. What S3 storage class can satisfy these requirements most cost-effectively? Option A, S3 Standard. Option B, S3 Standard Infrequent Access, S3 Standard LA. Option C, S3 Glacier Flexible Retrieval. Option D, S3 Glacier Deep Archive. The correct answer is B, S3 Standard Infrequent Access, S3 Standard IA. Here is why. S3 Standard IA provides millisecond access and lower storage cost for large objects that are rarely accessed but must remain immediately available. Why are the other options not correct? S3 Standard costs more for data that is rarely accessed. C. Glacier Flexible Retrieval requires a retrieval process that takes minutes or longer. D. Glacier Deep Archive has retrieval times measured in hours. Exam tip. Standard IA combines infrequent access pricing with millisecond retrieval. Question number 670. What AWS service can generate information that can be used by external auditors? Option A, Amazon Cognito. Option B, Amazon FSx. Option C, AWS Config. Option D, Amazon Inspector. The correct answer is C, AWS Config. Here is why. AWS Config records resource configurations, relationships, changes, and compliance results that can provide evidence for security and compliance audits. Why are the other options not correct? Cognito provides application user authentication. B. Amazon FSx provides managed file systems. D. Inspector identifies vulnerabilities and unintended exposure. Exam tip. Config provides configuration history and compliance evidence. Question number 671. An organization is planning to migrate a monolithic application to AWS. The company needs to modernize the application by splitting it into microservices. The company will deploy the microservices on AWS. What migration strategy should the company use? Option A, rehost. Option B, repurchase. Option C, replatform. Option D, refactor. The correct answer is D, refactor. Here is why. Refactoring redesigns an application to use cloud-native architectures, such as replacing a monolith with independently deployed microservices. Why are the other options not correct? A rehosting moves the application with minimal changes. B. Repurchasing replaces the application with another product. C. Replatforming makes limited optimizations without major redesign. Exam tip. Refactor means redesigning an application for cloud-native capabilities. Question number 672. What benefit of the AWS cloud helps companies achieve lower usage costs because of the aggregate usage of all AWS users? Option A, no need to guess capacity. Option B, ability to go global in minutes. Option C, economies of scale. Option D, increased speed and agility. The correct answer is C, economies of scale. Here is why. AWS aggregates demand across many customers, enabling lower variable and per-unit infrastructure costs than many organizations can achieve independently. Why are the other options not correct? A. Eliminating capacity guesses concerns elasticity. B. Going global concerns worldwide infrastructure deployment. D. Speed and agility concern rapid experimentation and provisioning. Exam tip. Economies of scale reduce per-unit cloud infrastructure costs. Question number 673. An organization's employees are working from home. The company wants its employees to use their personal devices to connect to a managed Workstation in the AWS cloud. What AWS service should the company use to provide the remote environment? Option A, Amazon Workspaces. Option B, AWS Cloud 9. Option C, AWS Outposts. Option D, Amazon Lightsail. The correct answer is A, Amazon Workspaces. Here is why. Amazon Workspaces provides managed virtual desktops that employees can access remotely from supported personal devices. Why are the other options not correct? B, Cloud9 is a cloud-based development environment. C, Outposts extends AWS infrastructure to on-premises locations. D, Lightsail provides simplified cloud servers and applications. Exam tip. Workspaces provides complete managed cloud desktops. Question number 674. An organization deploys its application on Amazon EC2 instances. The application occasionally experiences sudden increases in demand. The company needs to ensure that its application can respond to changes in demand at the lowest possible cost. What AWS service or concept can satisfy these requirements? Option A, AWS Autoscaling. Option B, AWS Compute Optimizer. Option C, AWS Cost Explorer. Option D, AWS Well-Architected Framework. The correct answer is A, AWS Autoscaling. Here is why. AWS Autoscaling automatically increases or decreases capacity as demand changes, helping maintain performance while limiting and used resource cost. Why are the other options not correct? B, Compute Optimizer recommends resource configurations. C, Cost Explorer analyzes cost and usage. D, the Well-Architected Framework provides architectural guidance. Exam tip. Auto-scaling matches compute capacity to current demand. Question number 676. What action should a company take to improve security in its AWS account? Option A, require multi-factor authentication, MFA, for privileged users. Option B, remove the root user account. Option C, create an access key for the AWS account root user. Option D, create an access key for each privileged user. The correct answer is A, require multi-factor authentication, MFA, for privileged users. Here is why. MFA requires an additional authentication factor and reduces the risk that a stolen password alone can compromise a privileged account. Why are the other options not correct? B, the management account root user cannot simply be removed. C, root user access keys create unnecessary high-risk credentials. D, long-term access keys should not be created unless required. Exam tip. Require MFA for privileged identities and avoid root access keys. Question number 677. An organization needs to create and publish interactive business intelligence dashboards. The dashboards require insights that are powered by machine learning. What AWS service or tool can satisfy these requirements? Option A, AWS Glue Studio. Option B, Amazon QuickSight. Option C, Amazon Redshift. Option D, Amazon Athena. The correct answer is B. Amazon QuickSight. Here is why. Amazon QuickSight creates and publishes interactive business intelligence dashboards with machine learning insights, forecasts, and anomaly detection. Why are the other options not correct? Glue Studio visually creates and manages data integration jobs. C. Redshift provides managed data warehousing. D. Athena queries data in Amazon S3 by using SQL. Exam tip. QuickSight provides interactive dashboards and ML-powered insights. Question number 678. An organization needs the ability to acquire resources when the resources are needed. The company also needs the ability to release the resources when the resources are no longer needed. What AWS concept represents the company's goals? Option A. Scalability. Option B. Sustainability. Option C. Elasticity. Option D. Operational excellence. The correct answer is C. Elasticity. Here is why. Elasticity adds resources when they are needed and releases them when demand decreases, matching capacity to the workload. Why are the other options not correct? Scalability is the ability to increase or decrease capacity. B. Sustainability focuses on minimizing environmental impact. D. Operational excellence focuses on operations and continual improvement. Exam tip. Elasticity dynamically adjusts resources as demand changes. Question number 679. An organization needs to use Amazon EC2 instances for a stable production workload that will run for 1 year. What instance purchasing option meets these requirements most cost-effectively? Option A. Dedicated hosts. Option B. Reserved instances. Option C. On-demand instances. Option D. Spot instances. The correct answer is B. Reserved instances. Here is why. Reserved instances provide discounted pricing for predictable EC2 usage when the company commits to a 1-year or 3-year term. Why are the other options not correct? Dedicated hosts address licensing or physical isolation requirements. C. On-demand instances avoid commitments but normally cost more for steady usage. D. Spot instances can be interrupted and do not suit stable production workloads. Exam tip. Reserved instances suit predictable, sustained EC2 usage. Question number 680. An organization is building AWS architecture to deliver real-time data feeds from an on-premises data center into an application that runs on AWS. The company needs a consistent network connection with minimal latency. What should the company use to connect the application and the data center to satisfy these requirements? Option A. AWS Direct Connect. Option B. Public Internet. Option C. AWS VPN. Option D. Amazon Connect. The correct answer is A. AWS Direct Connect. Here is why. Direct Connect provides dedicated network connectivity between an on-premises data center and AWS with more consistent performance than internet-based connections. Why are the other options not correct? B. Public internet performance can vary. C. AWS VPN uses encrypted connections over the internet. D. Amazon Connect is a managed cloud contact center service. Exam tip. Direct Connect provides dedicated, consistent hybrid connectivity. Question number 681. An organization uses Amazon Workspaces. What task is the responsibility of AWS under the AWS Shared Responsibility Model? Option A. Set up multi-factor authentication, MFA, for each workspace's user account. Option B. Ensure the environmental safety and security of the AWS infrastructure that hosts workspaces. Option C. Provide security for workspaces' user accounts through AWS Identity and Access Management, IAM. Option D. Configure AWS CloudTrail to log API calls and user activity. The correct answer is B. Ensure the environmental safety and security of the AWS infrastructure that hosts workspaces. Here is why. AWS protects the physical facilities, hardware, environmental controls, and underlying infrastructure that operate Amazon workspaces. Why are the other options not correct? A. Customers configure MFA for their users. C. Customers manage user identities and access controls. D. Customers choose and configure CloudTrail logging. Exam tip. AWS secures workspaces infrastructure. Customers manage users and access. Question number 682. What combination of AWS services can be used to move a commercial relational database to an Amazon-managed open-source database? Choose 2. Option A. AWS Database Migration Service, AWS DMS. Option B. AWS Software Development Kits, SDKs. Option C. AWS Schema Conversion Tool. Option D. AWS Systems Manager. E. Amazon EMR. The correct answer is A. AWS Database Migration Service, AWS DMS. C. AWS Schema Conversion Tool. Here is why. AWS SCT converts the commercial database schema and code for an open-source engine, while AWS DMS migrates and can replicate the database data. Why are the other options not correct? B. AWS SDKs provide programmatic access to AWS services. D. Systems Manager operates and manages supported resources. E. Amazon EMR processes large datasets with big data frameworks. Exam tip. Use schema conversion for database objects and DMS for the data migration. Question number 683. What AWS service gives users on-demand, self-service access to AWS compliance control reports? Option A. AWS Config. Option B. Amazon Guard Duty. Option C. AWS Trusted Advisor. Option D. AWS Artifact. The correct answer is D. AWS Artifact. Here is why. AWS Artifact provides on-demand, self-service access to AWS compliance reports, certifications, and selected agreements. Why are the other options not correct? AWS Config tracks resource configurations and compliance. B. Guard Duty detects malicious and unauthorized activity. C. Trusted Advisor provides best practice recommendations. Exam tip. Use AWS Artifact to obtain AWS compliance reports and agreements. Question number 684. Which of the following are AWS best practice recommendations for the use of AWS Identity and Access Management, IAM? Choose 2. Option A. Use the AWS account root user for daily access. Option B. Use access keys and secret access keys on Amazon EC2. Option C. Rotate credentials on a regular basis. Option D. Create a shared set of access keys for system administrators. E. Configure multi-factor authentication, MFA. The correct answer is C. Rotate credentials on a regular basis. E. Configure multi-factor authentication, MFA. Here is why. Rotating required long-term credentials limits exposure, and MFA adds a second authentication factor to help protect account access. Why are the other options not correct? A. The root user should not be used for routine access. B. EC2 applications should use IAM roles instead of embedded access keys. D. Administrators should not share credentials. Exam tip. Prefer temporary credentials, require MFA, and never share access keys. Question number 685. What AWS service provides machine learning capability to detect and analyze content in images and videos? Option A. Amazon Connect. Option B. Amazon Lightsail. Option C. Amazon Personalize. Option D. Amazon Recognition. The correct answer is D. Amazon Recognition. Here is why. Amazon Recognition uses machine learning to identify and analyze objects, faces, text, activities, and other content in images and videos. Why are the other options not correct? Amazon Connect provides a managed cloud contact center. B. Lightsail provides simplified cloud resources. C. Personalize creates personalized recommendations. Exam tip. Recognition analyzes images and video with managed machine learning. Question number 686. An organization wants its AWS usage to be more sustainable. The company needs to track, measure, review, and forecast polluting emissions that result from its AWS applications. What AWS service or tool can the company use to satisfy these requirements? Option A. AWS Health Dashboard. Option B. AWS Customer Carbon Footprint Tool. Option C. AWS Support Center. Option D. Amazon QuickSight. The correct answer is B. AWS Customer Carbon Footprint Tool. Here is why. The Customer Carbon Footprint Tool helps customers track, measure, review, and forecast estimated carbon emissions associated with their AWS usage. Why are the other options not correct? A. AWS Health Report Service and Account Health Events. C. AWS Support Center manages support cases. D. QuickSight creates dashboards, but is not the dedicated emissions reporting tool. Exam tip. The Carbon Footprint Tool reports emissions associated with AWS usage. Question number 687. What AWS tool or feature acts as a VPC firewall at the subnet level? Option A. Security Group. Option B. Network ACL. Option C. Traffic Mirroring. Option D. Internet Gateway. The correct answer is B. Network ACL. Here is why. A network ACL is a stateless virtual firewall that controls inbound and outbound traffic at the VPC subnet boundary. Why are the other options not correct? Security groups are stateful controls associated with resources. C. Traffic mirroring copies network traffic for analysis. D. An internet gateway provides internet connectivity for AVPC. Exam tip. Network ACLs protect subnets. Security groups protect resources. Question number 688. An organization runs an application on AWS that performs batch jobs. The application is fault-tolerant and can handle interruptions. The company needs to optimize the cost to run the application. What AWS offering can satisfy these requirements? Option A. Amazon May-C. Option B. Amazon Neptune. Option C. Amazon EC2 Spot Instances. Option D. Amazon EC2 On-Demand Instances. The correct answer is C. Amazon EC2 Spot Instances. Here is why. Spot instances provide discounted spare EC2 capacity for fault-tolerant batch jobs that can handle interruptions. Why are the other options not correct? May-C discovers sensitive data in Amazon S3. B. Neptune is a managed graph database. D. On-demand instances avoid commitments but normally cost more than Spot. Exam tip. Use Spot for fault-tolerant batch workloads that can be interrupted. Question number 689. What AWS service can be used to send alerts when a specific Amazon Cloud Watch alarm is invoked? Option A. AWS CloudTrail. Option B. Amazon Simple Notification Service, Amazon SNS. Option C. Amazon Simple Queue Service, Amazon SQS. Option D. Amazon Event Bridge. The correct answer is B. Amazon Simple Notification Service, Amazon SNS. Here is why. A CloudWatch alarm can publish a notification to an SNS topic, which delivers alerts to subscribed endpoints. Why are the other options not correct? A CloudTrail records supported AWS API activity. C. Amazon SQS provides durable message queues. D. EventBridge routes events to targets, but is not the direct alarm notification choice. Exam tip. CloudWatch alarms commonly use SNS to send notifications. Question number 690. A cloud practitioner needs to use a highly available and scalable DNS service for its AWS workload. What AWS service can satisfy this requirement? Option A. Amazon Route 53. Option B. Amazon Lightsail. Option C, AWS Amplify Hosting. Option D, Amazon S3. The correct answer is A, Amazon Route 53. Here is why. Amazon Route 53 is a highly available and scalable DNS service that provides domain registration, DNS routing, and health checking. Why are the other options not correct? B, Lightsail provides simplified cloud servers and applications. C, Amplify Hosting deploys and hosts web applications. D, Amazon S3 provides object storage. Exam tip. Route 53 provides highly available and scalable DNS. Question number 691. An organization is learning about its responsibilities that are related to the management of Amazon EC2 instances. What tasks for EC2 instances are the company's responsibility under the AWS shared responsibility model? Choose 2. Option A, install and patch the machine hypervisor. Option B, patch the guest operating system. Option C, encrypt data at rest on associated storage. Option D, install the physical hardware and cabling. E, provide physical security for the EC2 instances. The correct answer is B, patch the guest operating system. C, encrypt data at rest on associated storage. Here is why. EC2 customers manage the guest operating system and choose how to encrypt their data and attach storage. Why are the other options not correct? A, AWS manages the hypervisor. D, AWS installs and maintains physical hardware and cabling. E, AWS provides physical security for its infrastructure. Exam tip. With EC2, customers manage the guest OS, applications, data, and access controls. Question number 692. What task is the responsibility of the customer under the AWS shared responsibility model? Option A, patch the Amazon DynamoDB operating system. Option B, secure Amazon Cloud front-edge locations by allowing physical access according to the principle of least privilege. Option C, protect the hardware that runs AWS services. Option D, use AWS Identity and Access Management, IAM, according to the principle of least privilege. The correct answer is D, use AWS Identity and Access Management, IAM, according to the principle of least privilege. Here is why. Customers configure identities and permissions and should grant only the access required to perform each task. Why are the other options not correct? A, AWS patches the operating system that runs DynamoDB. B, AWS controls physical access to cloud front-edge locations. C, AWS protects the hardware that operates AWS services. Exam tip. Customers manage IAM permissions. AWS protects the underlying infrastructure. Question number 693. An organization needs to migrate all of its on-premises infrastructure to the AWS cloud. Before migration, the company wants estimate of costs for running its as-is infrastructure. What AWS service or principle should the company use to satisfy this requirement? Option A, AWS Pricing Calculator. Option B, AWS Well-Architected Framework. Option C, AWS Shared Responsibility Model. Option D, AWS Cloud Adoption Framework, AWS CAF. The correct answer is A, AWS Pricing Calculator. Here is why. AWS Pricing Calculator estimates the monthly cost of a planned AWS environment before resources are deployed. Why are the other options not correct? B, the Well-Architected Framework provides architecture guidance. C, the Shared Responsibility Model defines security responsibilities. D, AWS CAF guides organizational cloud adoption and transformation. Exam tip. Pricing Calculator estimates planned AWS costs before deployment. Question number 694. What AWS service supports a company's ability to treat infrastructure as code? Option A, AWS Code Deploy. Option B, AWS Elastic Beanstalk. Option C, Amazon API Gateway. Option D, AWS Cloud Formation. The correct answer is D, AWS Cloud Formation. Here is why. Cloud Formation uses templates to define and provision AWS infrastructure as code in a consistent and repeatable way. Why are the other options not correct? A code deploy automates application software deployments. B. Elastic Beanstalk deploys and manages applications. C. API Gateway creates and manages APIs. Exam tip. Cloud Formation provisions repeatable infrastructure from templates. Question number 695. What AWS service provides DNS resolution? Option A, Amazon CloudFront. Option B, Amazon VPC. Option C, Amazon Route 53. Option D, AWS Direct Connect. The correct answer is C, Amazon Route 53. Here is why. Amazon Route 53 provides highly available DNS resolution, domain registration, traffic routing, and health checking. Why are the other options not correct? A CloudFront caches and delivers content through edge locations. B. Amazon VPC provides logically isolated networking. D. Direct Connect provides dedicated connectivity to AWS. Exam tip. Route 53 provides DNS. CloudFront provides content delivery. Question number 696. When designing AWS workloads to be operational even when there are component failures, what is an AWS best practice? Option A. Perform quarterly disaster recovery tests. Option B. Place the main component on the US East 1 region. Option C. Design for automatic failover to healthy resources. Option D. Design workloads to fit on a single Amazon EC2 instance. The correct answer is C. Design for automatic failover to healthy resources. Here is why. Automatic failover allows a workload to continue operating when a component fails by directing traffic or processing to healthy resources. Why are the other options not correct? A quarterly testing alone does not provide automatic failure recovery. B. A specific region does not remove component failure risk. D. A single instance creates a single point of failure. Exam tip. Reliability favors automatic recovery and removal of single points of failure. Question number 697. Which one of the following can the AWS pricing calculator do? Option A. Project monthly AWS costs. Option B. Calculate historical AWS costs. Option C. Provide in-depth information about AWS pricing strategies. Option D. Provide users with access to their monthly bills. The correct answer is A. Project monthly AWS costs. Here is why. A AWS pricing calculator creates estimates for planned AWS services and projects their expected monthly cost. Why are the other options not correct? B. Cost Explorer analyzes historical cost and usage. C. The calculator estimates services rather than teaching pricing strategy. D. The billing console provides access to monthly bills. Exam tip. Pricing calculator estimates planned cost. Cost Explorer analyzes actual spending. Question number 698. What task is the customer's responsibility under the AWS shared responsibility model? Option A. Patch a guest operating system that is deployed on an Amazon EC2 instance. Option B. Control physical access to an AWS data center. Option C. Control access to AWS underlying hardware. Option D. Patch a host operating system that is deployed on Amazon S3. The correct answer is A. Patch a guest operating system that is deployed on an Amazon EC2 instance. Here is why. Customers manage and patch the guest operating systems that they run on EC2 instances. Why are the other options not correct? B. AWS controls physical access to its data centers. C. AWS controls access to the underlying hardware. D. AWS manages the operating systems and infrastructure that support Amazon S3. Exam tip. EC2 customers patch guest operating systems. AWS patches underlying infrastructure. Question number 699. What AWS service or feature provides a firewall at the subnet level within a VPC? Option A. Security group. Option B. Network ACL. Option C. Elastic Network Interface. Option D. AWS WAF. The correct answer is B. Network ACL. Here is why. A network ACL is a stateless virtual firewall that controls inbound and outbound traffic at the subnet boundary. Why are the other options not correct? Security groups are stateful controls associated with resources. C. An elastic network interface is a virtual network adapter. D. AWS WAF filters supported web requests. Exam tip. Network ACLs protect subnets. Security groups protect resources. Question number 700. An organization needs to host a web server on Amazon EC2 instances for at least 1 year. The web server cannot tolerate interruption. What EC2 instance purchasing option can satisfy these requirements most cost-effectively? Option A. On-demand instances. Option B. Partial upfront reserved instances. Option C. Spot instances. Option D. No upfront reserved instances. The correct answer is B. Partial upfront reserved instances. Here is why. A 1-year reserved instance suits predictable, interruption-intolerant usage. Partial upfront costs less overall than the no upfront option. Why are the other options not correct? On-demand has no commitment but normally costs more for steady annual usage. C. Spot instances can be interrupted. D. No upfront RIs usually provide a smaller discount than partial upfront RIs. Exam tip. For predictable EC2 usage, a larger upfront RI payment usually lowers total cost. Question number 701. What guidelines are best practices for using AWS Identity and Access Management, IAM? Choose 2. Option A. Share access keys. Option B. Create individual IAM users. Option C. Use inline policies instead of customer-managed policies. Option D. Grant maximum privileges to IAM users. E. Use groups to assign permissions to IAM users. The correct answer is B. Create individual IAM users. E. Use groups to assign permissions to IAM users. Here is why. Individual identities improve accountability, while IAM groups let administrators assign common permissions consistently to multiple IAM users. Why are the other options not correct? Access keys must not be shared. C. Managed policies are generally easier to reuse and maintain than inline policies. D. Permissions should follow least privilege, not maximum privilege. Exam tip. Use individual identities, groups, and least privilege permissions. Question number 702. What advantage of cloud computing allows users to scale resources up and down based on the amount of load that an application supports? Option A. Go global in minutes. Option B. Stop guessing capacity. Option C. Benefit from massive economies of scale. Option D. Trade fixed expense for variable expense. The correct answer is B. Stop guessing capacity. Here is why. Cloud elasticity lets users add or remove resources as demand changes instead of forecasting and purchasing fixed peak capacity. Why are the other options not correct? A going global concerns rapid geographic deployment. C. Economies of scale reduce per unit costs. D. Variable expense replaces much upfront capital spending. Exam tip. Stop guessing capacity by scaling resources to match demand. Question number 703. What AWS services or features form the AWS Cloud Global Infrastructure? Choose 2. Option A. Availability zones. Option B. Amazon Elastic Cache. Option C. AWS regions. Option D, Amazon S3. E, Amazon VPC. The correct answer is A, availability zones. C, AWS regions. Here is why. AWS regions are separate geographic areas, and each region contains multiple isolated availability zones. Why are the other options not correct? B, Elastic Cache is a managed in-memory caching service. D, Amazon S3 is an object storage service. E, Amazon VPC is a logically isolated virtual network. Exam tip. Regions and availability zones are core AWS global infrastructure components. Question number 704. An organization uses Amazon RDS for a product database. The company needs to ensure the database is highly available. What feature of Amazon RDS can satisfy this requirement? Option A, read replicas. Option B, blue/green deployment. Option C, multi-availability zone deployment. Option D, reserved instances. The correct answer is C, multi-availability zone deployment. Here is why. An RDS multi-availability zone deployment maintains a standby in another availability zone and provides automatic failover for high availability. Why are the other options not correct? A read replicas primarily provide read scaling. B, blue/green deployments reduce risk during database changes. D, reserved instances provide pricing discounts. Exam tip. RDS multi-availability zone provides high availability. Read replicas provide read scaling. Question number 705. What AWS service provides serverless compute for use with containers? Option A, Amazon Simple Queue Service, Amazon SQS. Option B, AWS Fargate. Option C, AWS Elastic Beanstalk. Option D, Amazon SageMaker. The correct answer is B, AWS Fargate. Here is why. AWS Fargate provides serverless compute for containers without requiring users to provision or manage EC2 instances. Why are the other options not correct? Amazon SQS provides durable message queues. C, Elastic Beanstalk deploys and manages applications. D, SageMaker AI supports machine learning workloads. Exam tip. Fargate runs containers without server management. Question number 706. An organization is using multiple AWS accounts for different business teams. The finance team needs to receive one bill for all of the company's accounts. What AWS service or tool should the finance team use to satisfy this requirement? Option A, AWS Organizations. Option B, AWS Trusted Advisor. Option C, Cost Explorer. Option D, AWS Budgets. The correct answer is A, AWS Organizations. Here is why. AWS Organizations provides consolidated billing so multiple member accounts can receive one combined bill through the management account. Why are the other options not correct? B, Trusted Advisor provides best practice recommendations. C, Cost Explorer analyzes cost and usage. D, AWS Budgets tracks spending against thresholds. Exam tip. Organizations provide centralized account management and consolidated billing. Question number 707. An organization is planning to use the Amazon EC2 instances as web servers. Customers from around the world will use the web servers. Most customers will use the web servers only during certain hours of the day. How should the company deploy the EC2 instances to achieve the lowest operational cost? Option A, in multiple availability zones. Option B, in an auto-scaling group. Option C, in a placement group. Option D, in private subnets. The correct answer is B, in an auto-scaling group. Here is why. An auto-scaling group adds instances during busy periods and removes them when demand falls, reducing idle compute cost. Why are the other options not correct? Multiple availability zones improve availability, but do not scale capacity by demand. C, placement groups control instance placement for performance. D. Private subnets control network exposure, not compute cost. Exam tip. Auto-scaling matches EC2 capacity to demand and reduces idle cost. Question number 708. What design principles are included in the reliability pillar of the AWS well-architected framework? Choose 2. Option A. Automatically recover from failure. Option B. Grant everyone access to increase AWS service quotas. Option C. Stop guessing capacity. Option D. Design applications to run in a single availability zone. E. Plan to increase AWS service quotas first in a secondary AWS region. The correct answer is A. Automatically recover from failure. C. Stop guessing capacity. Here is why. Reliability design principles include automatic recovery and using elastic capacity instead of relying on fixed capacity estimates. Why are the other options not correct? B. Service quota access should be restricted, not granted to everyone. D. A single availability zone reduces resilience. E. Quotas should be monitored and managed where workloads require them. Exam tip. Reliability uses automatic recovery and capacity that can adjust to demand. Question number 709. An organization is running big data analytics and massive parallel computations on its AWS test and development servers. The company can tolerate occasional downtime. What is the most cost-effective Amazon EC2 purchasing option for the company to use? Option A. On-demand instances. Option B. Spot instances. Option C. Reserved instances. Option D. Savings plans. The correct answer is B. Spot instances. Here is why. Spot instances provide discounted spare EC2 capacity for fault-tolerant test, development, analytics, and parallel workloads that can handle interruption. Why are the other options not correct? On-demand avoids commitment but normally costs more than spot. C. Reserved instances suit predictable sustained usage. D. Savings plans require a usage commitment. Exam tip. Spot offers the lowest EC2 cost for interruption-tolerant workloads. Question number 710. Which of the following actions are controlled with AWS Identity and Access Management IAM? Choose 2. Option A. Control access to AWS service APIs and to other specific resources. Option B. Provide intelligent threat detection and continuous monitoring. Option C. Protect the AWS environment using multi-factor authentication, MFA. Option D. Grant users access to AWS data centers. E. Provide firewall protection for applications from common web attacks. The correct answer is A. Control access to AWS service APIs and to other specific resources. C. Protect the AWS environment using multi-factor authentication, MFA. Here is why. IAM policies control access to AWS actions and resources, while IAM supports MFA to strengthen authentication for users. Why are the other options not correct? B. Guard duty provides intelligent threat detection. D. Customers are not granted physical data center access through IAM. E. AWS WAF protects applications from common web attacks. Exam tip. IAM manages authentication and authorization for AWS access. Question number 711. Why are AWS Cloud Formation templates used? Option A. To reduce provisioning time by using automation. Option B. To transfer existing infrastructure to another company. Option C. To reuse on-premises infrastructure in the AWS cloud. Option D. To deploy large infrastructure with no cost implications. The correct answer is A. To reduce provisioning time by using automation. Here is why. Cloud Formation templates automate repeatable resource provisioning, reducing manual work and deployment time. Why are the other options not correct? B. Templates do not transfer infrastructure ownership to another company. C. Cloud Formation provisions AWS resources rather than reusing physical hardware. D. Provisioned resources can still incur normal AWS charges. Exam tip. CloudFormation automates consistent infrastructure provisioning. Question number 712. What group shares responsibility with AWS for security and compliance of AWS accounts and resources? Option A, third-party vendors. Option B, customers. Option C, reseller partners. Option D, internet providers. The correct answer is B, customers. Here is why. AWS and its customers share responsibility for security and compliance. AWS secures the cloud, while customers secure their workloads and data. Why are the other options not correct? Vendors do not replace the customer's security responsibilities. C. Reseller partners are not the shared responsibility counterpart. D. Internet providers do not manage AWS account security. Exam tip. AWS secures the cloud. Customers secure what they run in the cloud. You have completed part 13 of the CLF-C02 practice series. Continue your preparation by opening the complete playlist and watching the remaining parts in sequence. Please like this video, subscribe to Tech with Kaushik, and enable notifications for more certification exam preparation content. Share your score, questions, or feedback in the comments. Thank you for watching. See you in the next part.